the side of Sir Isaac Newton you never knew. If you glance at the list of the greatest scientific minds ever, or the most influential people of all time, at the top of both of these lists you would almost certainly find Sir Isaac Newton. You know him best for his many accomplishments in the fields of math and science and as a brilliant physicist, cosmologist and astronomer. Newton had many accomplishments in these fields. His theories on gravity and motion, his inventions in the field of optics and of the first reflecting telescope. And just to prove the truths behind his theories he invented calculus. Most of this he accomplished before the age of 26. Virtually every aspect of our modern life rests in some way on Newton's findings. But what you probably don't know, what you haven't been told in your studies is Newton wrote 10 times more information about the Bible and God than he ever wrote about math and science. Newton actually expressed that if he was remembered at all he wanted to be because of his theological writings. Newton studied the Bible extensively his whole life from his youth on. It's been estimated that Newton possessed some 30 Bibles and many manuscripts and he understood and wrote in all the languages of the original text of the Bible: Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, and Latin. He examined all the historical and scientific evidence, as well as all prophecies past and future. Newton was leaving no stone unturned in his search to find out if this book was really from the creator of the universe. And we would expect nothing less of one of the greatest scientific minds ever. His ability to analyze and reason on matters of great importance was nothing short of astonishing. What did he find? He wrote, "There are more sure marks of authenticity in the Bible than in any profane history whatsoever." Newton saw the hand of an intelligent creator in all of nature and the universe, and he spoke glowingly about him. In his writings of the magnum opus, the Principia, published in 1687, Newton describes his theories of gravity and motion. But he also made a point to acknowledge where it all came from. Just listen to what he says. Newton writes, "This most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent being. This being governs all things, not as the soul of the world, but as Lord over all. The Supreme God is a being eternal, infinite, and absolutely perfect." Wow! How many scientists have you heard say that? Ask yourself, what did Newton know that the rest of the scientific community is missing? I think I know. Newton actually took the time to make an extensive examination of the Bible instead of just writing it off as a storybook. Like most of the scientists of today who just follow along with what the rest of the scientific community believes. Newton, on the other hand, was not a follower. He wanted to find out the truth about God and the Bible for himself. That was Newton. He refused to stand behind anything he couldn't completely prove. Now, having brought all this to your attention, there are 2 huge problems people face in the world today in the search for the truth about God and the Bible, and even more so for students of higher education. Number 1 is, we're all told the Bible is just a book of myths and legends. And even if you find out that nothing is farther from the truth like Isaac Newton did, you then have another huge Herschel, whose religious beliefs are teaching the pure worship that Newton said was practiced by Jesus and his apostles. This problem is compounded with the fact that there are tens of thousands of different Christian religious beliefs in the world today. Well, you see the problem. Fortunately for you, what Isaac Newton's found in his intense studies of the Bible can help with all these problems. Newton hoped that his discoveries in the field of science and math would bring people closer to God. Newton, however, had a huge problem with the religions of his day. He found that when he compared them to the pure worship practiced by Jesus and his apostles, it was very clear that Christianity as a whole, as Newton put it, had gone amok, corrupted by medieval churches. Newton was so disturbed with this corruption that he refused to become a priest, which was expected of anyone attending Trinity College at Cambridge University. His stand on this matter almost cost him his job and seat at the university. Despite this, Newton wanted desperately to take part in a restoration of the pure worship taught by Jesus. At some point Newton realized that the churches of his day were just too powerful. So he had to be content with writing about it and sharing it with his peers and friends. He knew according to the Bible that this restoration to pure worship would take place in the conclusion of this system of things. You will hear Newton refer to it as the age of understanding that was to come, when this pure worship would be preached in all the earth. The very corruption Newton found in the religions of his time continues to this day. You, however, have an opportunity to take part in something huge. Something Isaac Newton desperately wanted to be a part of. Not just being a part of the restoration of pure worship, but also taking part in the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. To put it simply, I would like you to take another look at the Bible through the eyes of someone who wasn't just a man of science with a passive interest in God and the Bible. To the contrary, Newton did what was probably one of the most intense and complex examination of the Bible ever done. He didn't just accept religious beliefs passed on to him by his family, or an atheistic view which is fast becoming so prevalent today. Newton, to the contrary, wanted to know the truth, and he found it. Most of us don't have an opportunity to gain the level of appreciation Isaac Newton had for the Bible and Creator of the universe, until much later on in life, if at all. Unfortunately, according to what Isaac Newton found in Bible prophecy, you may not have that kind of time. Here is some further information about the writings of Isaac Newton we spoke of earlier. Over 300 years ago, Sir Isaac Newton wrote some very interesting information about understanding prophecy, including the one about the great crowd of Revelation 7-9 and 10. In his observations upon the prophecies of Daniel, and the Apocalypse of St. John, published in 1733, he stated, "These prophecies of Daniel and John should not be understood till the time of the end, but then some should prophesy out of them in an afflicted and mournful state for a long time, and that but darkly, so as to convert but few. Then, saith Daniel in the 12th chapter, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. For the gospel must be preached in all nations before the great tribulation, and end of the present system of things." Then Newton states further, "The palm-bearing multitude, which come out of this great tribulation, cannot be innumerable out of all nations, unless they be made so by the preaching of the gospel before it comes." Isaac Newton was convinced that the time of the end would result in a new era of global peace and prosperity under the millennial rule of God's kingdom. Newton stated that the prophecy of Micah 4-3, as well as that of Isaiah 2-4, would be fulfilled at that time. They will have to beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning shears. They will not lift up sword, nation against nation, neither will they learn war anymore. Newton came to the view that a simple and authentic form of Christianity had been perverted by corruptors in the centuries following the life of Jesus Christ, producing the brand of religion that was now accepted as orthodox by the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of England, and virtually all Christian religions even to our day. He concluded that the orthodox notion of the Trinity was a fiction that was invented in the early 4th century and subsequently promoted by satanic influences. He argued that to believe that Jesus was Almighty God was a form of idolatry. He writes, "If you give to any other being the worship that was properly due to God, it was idolatry, and that Jesus was divine. But he was not the Almighty God. I don't want you to take my word for any of this. Please take the time to investigate this for yourself. You can start by going to jw.org. Just type Sir Isaac Newton into the search bar,